The only science fiction angle they captured with this release is showing the viewer what time dilation actually means. When I say boring, I mean boring as hell.
Okay. I was like, wait, where is this going?
What episode was that?
Yeah, I missed that one.
Complete absence of the Empire, spaceships, action, adventure.
What?
It's like being trapped in a dying mall inside of Boise, Idaho.
The confirmed worst place on Earth.
Except you might see a stormtrooper if you wandered past the Sharper Image store.
Oh, wow.
That's just a foot massager. It looks like a.
It's like they do it in white and black. Yeah.
Andor so far lacks to deliver and is an insult to the Star Wars franchise. I would rather watch Book of Boba Fett than this drivel.
But have they seen the holiday special?
I had a moment where I was like, which character was Yonder?
Too. Like, where did they go to a place called Yonder?
Yeah,
I'm so
that sounds-
confused.
That was a 1-star review from IMDb. Welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series and films. I am your host, Andrew, joined as always by Ryan.
Hello.
And Steven.
Hi, diddly ho there.
Yeah, hi guys.
Hey, how's it going?
So this week we are talking about Andor, Star Wars Andor, a Star Wars story. I don't know if
How's it actually? Yeah,
I don't think it has
just
anything
says
else.
Andor.
I think it's just Andor.
Yeah, just Disney Plus Andor.
So
Yeah.
we're talking about Andor.
Yeah.
And
It's a TV show.
it is a TV show.
Streaming on Disney Plus.
Yep.
Yeah.
But before we do that, this is technically a spinoff of a spinoff.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, Rogue One
prequel
was
to a
spin-off.
prequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to hear
Prequelception.
what you guys would like to see in the Star Wars spin-off saga
Okay.
of it can be any character. It doesn't have to be canon characters. It can be any character from the entire
Legends, let's go.
entire
Wow.
Legends
Okay.
library.
Horn,
But, like,
back
what
on
kinda-
deck.
Wish list spin-off series
Yeah,
that we'd like to see.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just fanboy over here.
Yeah. Okay. Steven.
Oh, I'm going first.
Yeah.
All right. You know what? I know Andrew knows exactly where I'm going with this. Ryan probably doesn't have a clue, and that's okay.
I probably don't.
Look, I
And
know,
I'm okay with that.
and we ruled out, right? If it's already in production, you can't bring it up.
That is correct.
But what's in production?
Well, we actually didn't rule it out, but we are
we
ruling it out now.
discussed it.
Yeah.
We discussed it. But what's in production is a movie that may never happen. We're going to ignore Rogue Squadron because it's mislabeled, whatever. We ignore that.
Okay.
I want a TV series that follows, I don't care. It can be Red Squadron, Green Squadron, Blue Squadron,
What if it's
Rogue
just called-
Squadron.
Wedge.
Wedge.
Yeah. You know what?
Wedge Antilles.
Antilles. All right? I'm here
Oh, that
for
does
it.
sound better than
That sounds way
Wedge.
better than Wedge.
Wedge.
They do the reverse of like the Andor A. It's just Wedge. It's just
Yeah.
a driving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, it's in the shape of an X-wing.
Perfect, right?
Oh,
we're already,
logo
we're already
done.
doing
It's
the
done.
design for them, man. But just I want week by week
Mhm.
an X-wing squadron out there fighting the fight. Escort missions, raids. Give me some kind of overarching plot
Yeah.
to go with it.
Top Gun in space.
Yeah, just Top Gun in space. We watch Top Gun Maverick. I mean, it's back in theaters. You can go watch it in theaters again if you really want
Which
to.
is also a Star Wars film.
Also possibly one of
Now,
the best Star Wars
okay.
films.
Asterisk. It's not really, but it's much like a Star Wars.
But
People are going to go be like, there's no lightsabers in this at all. I was lied to.
But there is a Death Star trench
There is a Death Star
and
trench.
proton torpedoes.
Well, okay. Yeah,
or
again,
what the U.S. military can offer us as proton torpedoes.
Laser guided bombs.
Yeah, it's pretty close. But I would really just like that kind of thing. I know, it's not every, a lot of people, Star Wars, our 1-star reviewer most likely was like, there's no lightsabers. They didn't say
Yeah.
may the force be with you. This
Yeah.
is not Star Wars. And you know what? I don't need that.
no.
I need the scrappy X-wing squadron. Give me like an imposter in there. Like a mission.
A spy.
Yeah, a mission
Yeah.
fails, and
So-
now it's a question of were they given away or like
What
come on.
era are we talking?
This is
You want
original
original trilogy,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
But
want,
so after the first Death Star?
yeah, give me
think?
post first Death Star,
Mhm.
maybe pre-second Death Star, somewhere in the middle. It doesn't have
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
off.
I mean,
Okay.
well, because there's a decent amount of
Is it
time in
5
between
years
there.
in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a chunk of time to fill where the Alliance was doing stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, even post second Death Star, pre-sequels. If we go into Legends, we go into the actual X-wing book series,
Mm-hmm.
which covers kind of like the conquest of Coruscant and just all kinds of things.
And that was after The
That was-
second
that was
Death
after
Star?
the
was
second
after
Death
the
Star,
second, yeah.
That was like as the Rebel Alliance was trying to transform from being a rebellion to being an actual legitimate government.
And
Got
this
it.
was, I'm pretty sure, after the events of the Thrawn trilogy as well, if I remember correctly.
No,
or concurrent.
Thrawn trilogy, actually, when Thrawn reappears, they are in control of Coruscant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Thrawn is the blue dude from
Oh, you
the
were
books, and then also
killing me over here.
Yes.
Yes.
Rebels.
Yes.
He was in Rebels.
He
They
wasn't
did
in
bring
Clone
him
Wars,
into
though,
canon.
right?
It was
no,
not, no.
he was not.
I am an idiot when it comes to extended canon,
Oh,
and I'm
killing
trying
me
to
right
be
now.
a mirror for those of our listeners that also are an idiot about it. So
But yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
just give me some fly boys, some fly girls out there, and some X-wings tearing it up.
Yeah.
Making the rebellion happen,
Yeah.
and just the week by week. There's a new mission, a new challenge.
how much Porkins are we talking about in this series?
I
Well, Porkins
will
didn't
take-
survive, but
He
yeah.
didn't survive first Death Star.
Oh yeah, he
But
did.
if we're
Dang, Porkins, rip.
but like if we're pre Death Star, we could have like Biggs and Porkins, like
Yeah.
you could probably
Wedge.
bounce around in time too.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
get the
Pre-first
band
Death
back
Star.
together. It's
Yeah,
fun.
I mean,
Yeah.
throw out, give me Wes, Dak, and Wedge out there fighting. I
And-
know
and-
that Dak's gonna die.
in terms
It's
of
okay.
overall like story arc, you just want like adventures.
I really,
an
I
X-Wing
just
crew.
He
like
wants
what
an episodic kind of experience of like missions.
Okay.
Yeah, like my ideal. I played X-wing and Tie Fighter back in the '90s,
Mhm.
PC games, so you wouldn't know anything about them.
I was aware.
I'm
of
looking
that.
right at you. You wouldn't know anything about
No,
'em.
here we go. Story right here. So there is rumblings in the rebellion, right?
Mhm.
That there's a second Death Star being made.
Right.
And
You got
now,
scouted out.
and they have to go scout it out. But they before they have to do that, they have
Yeah.
to go and obviously pick up the Bothan spies that are trying to so they're like
Or like they're flying cover for them later in the like it's like there's
done.
there's so
Written.
much
I've already written the
there's
whole
so much
Disney, check please.
potential material in there that's
Yeah.
an empty space. You don't necessarily have to pull big name characters,
Okay.
but like if you want to drop like a Wedge Antilles in there and have him like be the leader of the squadron, or even
Or
starting
just
out
cameo
not.
an episode or something.
Yeah, or he. So they do this with the Squadrons game where he comes
Mm-hmm.
in and like gives you like mission briefings.
Got it.
So it could be something like that. It doesn't matter. My favorite part of Star Wars will always be the space battles, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people show up to hear lightsabers go vroom, 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 right? That's not what I'm here for. I'm here for
They have
the
motorcycle
pew, pew,
engines
pew.
in them.
That's
I
what
don't know
I
if you know
live
that.
for.
Vroom, 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 vroom. Look at his lightsaber.
But yeah, no, I mean, like the space battles are definitely what really gives Star Wars a Star Wars, right?
Well,
Like,
and a lot of times those are the most pivotal moments,
Yeah.
right? The big,
Yeah.
destroy the Death Star, destroy the second Death Star, destroy the Death Planet, destroy,
destroy the Death Squadron of Star Destroyers.
we don't talk about that one. But I could go on. But yeah, that's what I'm like. Disney, you want to splash some cash on a streaming TV series? Let's
Yeah.
go.
Let's
yeah,
do it.
give us that.
Andrew, what's yours?
Okay, so I'm gonna grab from Legends. And whenever we came up with this topic, it was the first thing that popped in my head immediately, like just right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Kyle Katarn from Dark Forces.
Oh, you just
Okay.
want to see the HWK out there, the Hawk.
No. Oh, well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you want to see the
sure,
Hawk.
yeah.
Okay, yes, no, but yes,
No,
yes.
yes. No, you can't read me like a book.
yeah,
Oh,
I
wait,
mean,
yes.
I want to see Jan Norris and the Hawk laying support to Kyle Katarn, which is a one-man army. But he's really more of like a spy.
Yeah.
So initially before basically the whole canon got reset, he was the one that actually grabbed the Death Star secret plans for the first Death Star.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so basically before Rogue One existed, now he was the guy.
Back when legends weren't legends.
Yes, but the story that I really like is not really the first Dark Forces story. It's it's Dark Forces 2 and Jedi Knight and Jedi Outcast, which I thought was really compelling because he is semi-force sensitive and is kind of a fan fiction-esque kind of thing.
Mhm.
But he basically becomes a semi-Jedi, and then he kind of almost falls to the dark side, and then he chooses to completely give it up. But, he's then, drawn back into the fray
Right.
of his calling, and he basically can control both light side and dark side forces and abilities.
Best of both worlds,
Yeah, so
baby.
he's got
Okay.
the best of both
Totally
worlds.
a fanfic
And he's not
character.
like technically a Jedi, so he's not
No.
like beholden to the same code. So
Exactly.
He can do,
yeah. So he's
Cool.
he's like the mercenary Jedi, which is really cool.
Yeah. That would
Yeah.
be fun.
Yeah, I would totally be for it.
Yeah, I'd eat that up. I didn't
And
even think
they
about that.
definitively said he's not anywhere part of canon
As
anymore,
far
correct?
as far as we know, he is currently not part of canon.
And there's never been any Easter egg or any kind of like anything in.
Well,
Ooh.
Oh, funny you should say.
funny you should say, because we're going to talk about that in Andor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice.
What about you?
I want to see a television show spinoff of the Jedi Fallen Order cast, basically, which is
Okay.
the newest video game.
I've heard it's
They released.
fantastic.
It's pretty good.
Okay.
I wouldn't go as far as fantastic.
It's not fantastic,
No.
but I still want to put it on the screen.
It's
I wanna
really
see it.
good. The story that unfolds is really good.
Mhm.
It's like it's very similar if you know Dark Souls, like
Yeah.
those video games. It's similar to that, but not quite as hard as those, and not quite
So
as
if you're
deep as
if you're
those.
expecting that kind of difficulty, it's not going to be
Then
as
it's
fun
not
of
going
an
to do that for you.
experience.
But if you play Dark Souls type games and you're like, this is just too like obscure, like I don't know what
yeah,
potion I'm supposed to have. What am I doing here?
this is the way to do it.
That's the way to go.
So what do you like about the characters
So-
in the story?
Specifically, the main character Cal Kestis is a Jedi who it takes place right around the same time as the Obi-Wan show. So it's like
Yeah.
between Order 66 type thing.
And
so,
Battle of Yavin.
yeah, so
Yeah.
he's on the run essentially at the very front, and he is hiding the fact that he's a Jedi. He's
Mhm.
undercover, and he has kind of, just like Obi-Wan, pushed himself away from the Force. Like he doesn't want to be detected in any capacity. He's trying to lay low. Hijinks ensue. They discover him, and then some of the same characters from Obi-Wan, the First Sisters, and like those characters come in.
The
after him.
Inquisitors, yeah.
The Inquisitors, yeah, they get in there. The thing that's fun about it is the cast of characters. So he's got like BD-8 is a really good droid.
Oh, it's a
The-
great droid design.
Deborah Wilson, who she was from Mad TV. That was the first place I've seen her. But
Mhm.
if you saw her face, you'd know her from like a lot of TV stuff. And she's been in some games.
Because the main guy, he's from
Gotham?
Shameless. There we go.
Shameless.
Yeah, he was in Shameless.
Do you want to see just that storyline,
No.
like verbatim?
So here's what I want.
Okay.
They have a second game coming out, right?
Uh-huh.
But back to this one, they have like a really fun cast. You have several characters that basically join up with his crew.
Mhm.
He gets a ship.
Yeah.
You know, you get the droid. All the like
All the-
usual
the
Star Wars
quintessential
stuff
Star
that
Wars
happens,
things.
right? They've announced a second game. I would like the show to take place either between them or after the second one, just to
Mm.
be like kind of a continuation of his story, but be a whole separate, unique thing that. Because what I think the unfortunate part about it is I think this is a very fun Star Wars story
Mhm.
that no one's going to see because you have to play it.
You have to play it,
yeah.
It's an interactive
That's
medium.
kind of like Shadows of the Empire.
yeah.
From the
Yeah.
from the mid '90s.
Yeah, same thing.
It's the
Mhm.
same idea of like I like this the characters and the where in the timeline it takes place.
Yeah.
I just want them to do it a different story, not the same one that kind of is like a bookend that kind of works with it.
Yeah.
The runner up for me would be like a musical show about Max Rebo and his band.
Stop. Okay, yeah, no, stop.
Yeah.
We're
I
done.
feel like that would be
Cut
No,
off.
that could be fun.
It'd be like Almost Famous,
Well,
but
it's-
with Max Rebo and his band.
Is it Sing, but with Max Rebo?
No. It's an actual like biopic where they
Yeah,
have
do like VH1 behind the
they
music.
have these moments where oh yeah, they were playing on stage and suddenly a firefight breaks out. Like in the background, you see like Han Solo gunning someone down. Then it cuts like one of the band members sitting there. He's like, "Yeah, that was crazy. That was the day I started drinking. I realized how dangerous this gig could be."
I had this problem too when we were trying
Like
to come up with
post
this.
interviews of
Yeah.
after the sail barge goes down.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, man, Jim didn't even make it out. I don't know what we're gonna do. We can't find a bassist. Find a bassist, man. You're never gonna replace the hole in my heart.
what about the guy that played the space flute? He's dead. Yeah. The problem I had when we were trying to come up with this was I kept thinking of characters that don't speak English, and I was like, because I was like Chewbacca, that'd be kind of a cool story. But then I was like, Chewie has never been subtitled. It's always like someone's in the scene
Interpreting,
with
yeah.
him. Like, same thing with like the Ewoks.
That's like Ducktective from Gravity Falls.
Yes.
exactly.
I don't know, Ducktective. What do
Yeah.
you think?
It'd be hard to make a whole series out of that. But yeah.
It'd be a very art house
Yeah.
thing going on here.
He just looks out the window.
We
It's
I
the
can tell what he's
A24
We-
Chewbacca.
we heard Western audiences don't like subtitles. Well, guess what, nerds?
You're not
we got a
getting
deal for you
Read the emotion on his face.
through all the fur.
But they use the old puppet where it has no emoting ability. It's just the mouth goes up and down. It's like, oh no.
His eyes can open and
No,
close.
it's just
That's all
the,
you
it's the
get.
costume from the holiday special.
Oh,
Like
no.
the big bug eyes.
The budget cost. No,
Yeah.
gosh.
All right. So speaking of other TV shows, right?
Yeah.
We have to talk about Andor, which is the latest.
It's
in,
so hard to not be like Andor, a
Andor.
Star Wars story.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, it's just Andor.
Deal with it.
Yeah, so this was directed by Tony Gilroy,
Mhm.
and, uh, produced along with Diego Luna, who is Cassian
Cassian
Andor's
Andor.
actor.
I always wonder when you
Yes.
see like the actors get like the
Mhm.
executive producer credit. Like I think Ewan McGregor got
Yeah.
one on. Is like, did they really EP or are they
I
just giving out EP credits as like
I'm
participation
I'm pretty sure
trophies?
that he had a pretty strong hand
In this show,
in
it
this
wouldn't
show.
surprise me if he
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
But
The
anytime I see that EP credit for
it
actors,
is,
I'm
yeah.
like,
Well, because like,
okay.
Kathleen Kennedy's on this, I don't think she had much of a hand in this. I
Yeah.
may be
She's
wrong.
just part of Lucasfilm.
Yeah,
she's
she's
just
just
on
part
there
of
by
yeah, she's just
default.
always
Yeah,
on
I
it.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give a quick synopsis
Yeah.
of
We're not going to
Andor.
forget the synopsis.
Yeah,
Good man.
Cassian Andor, a thief whose home planet Kenari was destroyed by a botched Imperial mining project. The series begins with Andor as a revolution-averse cynic and explores how he becomes the most passionate person who's going to give themselves to save the galaxy in Rogue One. That is the
So they're
Wikipedia
like, this is the prequel of the A New Hope.
of A New Hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is I'd probably say this is like a spy thriller,
Yeah.
kind of, but it's not really a spy thriller. It's more of like just a character drama.
I was gonna say, really, like the show is a lot of things.
Yeah.
It does a lot of stuff. But
Yeah.
I think it's really it's better to think of it instead of like a prequel to Rogue One. It's more of just a character, specifically a show about Andor.
Yeah.
Hence the title. But it really doesn't do a ton to set up the events of Rogue One. So like it's not that type
Not
of
yet.
show.
Now,
yeah,
there is a season
Yeah,
two.
yeah. So there is a guaranteed season 2 that they have started principal
Production.
production on.
Yeah.
But it does show the founding of the rebellion and stuff. But it feels much more focused on like
On
individual
Cassian
characters and
or- yeah,
Cassian
like-
and
Yeah,
Mon Mothma.
I mean, in a lot of ways, I felt like a lot of the show was not, Cassian centric. It was
it
Mon
wasn't. It
Mothma,
was
Yeah.
everyone else.
It was Luthen.
And he's
Luthen,
just
yeah.
kind of the vehicle that brings a lot of
he was
people together.
Well, he was
in
the
one way or another.
thread that connects everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this show, 12 episodes. It's on Disney Plus now. You can go watch it if for whatever reason you haven't. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. It's fantastic. I loved it.
I personally loved it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's probably my favorite piece of Star Wars media since Rogue One. Probably.
Oh, I'm all the way up to the original trilogy for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
But I don't have a big like feeling towards Rogue One.
mm,
I think it's a relatively boring film for 3/4 of a film, and then the last quarter is really good.
I like the whole thing.
Yeah,
See, I
that's
feel
fine.
I feel like there are a lot of people who would tell you that Andor is boring for
Well,
3/4.
yeah,
of it.
so
It's a
that's-
similar feel, honestly.
Well, and that's kind of the thing too. Is I think if I go and rewatch Rogue One now, I'll have probably better appreciation for his character because in the
Sure.
when I first watched Rogue One, I did not like his character at all.
So
Really?
Rogue
Okay.
One came out after Force Awakens.
Yeah, it was
Correct.
in between.
So Andrew at that
yeah.
point was high on cocaine of Force Awakens and had watched it like 15 times. Like 12 of those in theater.
We did see a lot in theater.
You watched it a lot. So probably
Yes.
when Rogue One hit, you were like, this is a very different shade
It is.
of Star Wars from
Yeah.
because Force Awakens was such a Star Wars is back,
Yeah,
we're-
it's got the lightsabers and the flashing
Yeah,
lights in the
yeah.
sky, and I mean, like it was cool. But
so I think that probably, if you haven't seen it since then, that probably shades your opinion of
no,
Rogue
we
One.
watch it probably at once a year.
Okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
think if you watched it now,
I
hit
like
better.
definitely after watching Andor because you definitely get a little bit more of appreciation for the nuance of his character,
Mhm.
which you get a lot of in this.
there's a lot of
absolutely, yeah.
nuance everywhere.
Yeah. So general thoughts. What do you want?
So generally, I think the acting across the board is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
in terms of prequels, you always run the risk of ruining, something you've already got. Like I didn't love the prequel movies, like the
Yeah.
first,
well, because you a lot of it where every character ends up, right?
yeah, and
How do you
it's-
put tension in that, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's crazy with this series because unlike like Rings of Power, like where we had kind of like the same issue of like we have characters in this show that we know
live
they have
all
to
the way
be
through.
somewhere at
and
this
there's
point,
like
yeah.
a lot of tension is removed from scenes. This show is able to make me feel tense for characters. I know make it through it, but
Yeah.
it's just the way that I think the way they crafted the episodes, the way they were written, it was
Mhm.
really good writing, really good
Mhm.
acting. They didn't shoot it on the volume set, which is the set they use for The Mandalorian and Boba Fett and,
and
stuff.
Obi-Wan. Yeah.
And
it's-
Obi-Wan.
It's a very big difference having real life sets.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's immediately to me, like visually, the second the first episode starts, it's
you
like
can just immediately tell.
I just already were.
They go out to a
Yeah.
wide shot of the street, and you're just like, oh, this feels so much
and
better.
it's a real
Right.
street, like
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
people on it, and in costume, and like it feels lived in.
Yeah, and so for me, I loved Rogue One. I thought it was really good when it came out. I still like it. For me, this is exactly what I wanted when they said they were doing an Andor series. I was kind of skeptical at first because I was like, it's just going to be about the one guy.
Yeah,
Like, are we going to get to meet? Like, half the fun of Rogue One is that you assemble this,
the team.
the
yeah.
team,
Yeah.
And so going into it, I wasn't like not hyped, but definitely coming off of like Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan.
Oh yeah.
Both, which I did not like Book of Boba Fett. I was very middling on Obi-Wan. Coming into this, I was like, man, I don't know. Like, fool me twice.
How are they going to
Disney.
do this? Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think that was kind of everyone's thought going into this, honestly. Like I watched the trailer and I was like, yeah, that looks fine.
Yeah.
And then, we were like, oh, new episodes out, or the first 3 episodes are out.
Mhm.
Let's watch it. And I went into it, I was like, we've been burned enough. Like
I've been hurt.
Yeah. And then by the end of the first episode, I was like, okay.
Andrew's ready to be hurt
yeah.
again.
I was like, let's go.
Yeah, we finished that first episode and we both were like, and number 2 now?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Steven, what was your thoughts?
So I'm probably the least hype of the 3 of us
Mhm.
on it. And that's not saying I hate it or anything.
Yeah.
It's just a more measured take, maybe. A little less fanboying
Yeah.
going to happen over here. I would not say that it's my favorite since the original trilogy. Rogue One's still probably one of my higher points.
Mhm.
This comes in, a little under that,
Okay.
but not by some massive gap. It's just not so far ahead of the rest of the pack.
Well,
if
and
that makes
that's
sense.
completely fair too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like because this show is not very, I'll say quotation marks, Star Wars.
So it's
Yeah.
interesting because it is
It
both
is
emphatically Star Wars and
and
also
not.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, coming off of Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan, it is a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Much more pleased. This is one of those things, right? We were talking about this before the show, watching the trailers to TFA because we're just nerds. We wanted to.
That's
we're
the
like-
Force Awakens for.
Yeah, it's for the uninitiated. But think about the feeling at that point of how, like, where this could go. And Ryan, you were just like, yeah, it makes me angry now, kind of knowing how it all
that they
how it
brought
all
the
panned
sequel
out.
trilogy. Yeah.
And we've kind of played the reverse here, where it's like they've taken our expectations, just kind of beaten them down, and then this hits, and it's like,
this was always the
oh,
plan.
what
It's
a
like
breath of fresh air.
It's like you dove into the deep end of a pool,
Yeah, you get a
and
big-
and you're coming back up for air,
Mhm.
and you're just like, oh man, I'm almost running out of breath, and you hit, and you're like, oh yes, that was nice.
Yeah.
Air is good.
Air is
Yeah.
good.
My body likes the air. I spend much time in the air.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for what the show is, right? It's very, very character focused.
Mhm.
And I think they did a really good job casting. I think the actors almost across the board. I tried
We're almost flawless.
Great,
Like,
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you have some people where there's not much asked of them.
They
and that's
just don't get
fine.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I would say by comparison, when you look at Boba Fett or
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan,
Mhm.
there are actually characters that are doing a very bad job.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so to me, it's consistently good
Yeah. And
on the acting front.
The one thing that I really give this show credit for is, okay, yeah, Andor is technically the main character,
Mhm.
but you care so much about every single one
Oh,
that comes across
They
him.
they did a really good job, one of making the side characters interesting,
Yeah.
investing you in them, and then doing things to them that made you worry, right?
Yeah.
And because obviously Andor, we know how far he has to go before he runs out, right?
Yeah.
And it's not here.
Yeah.
So he's fine. Mon Mothma, we know, unless they're just really doing something weird with the canon, we know how far she goes.
Well, but that's the thing too. At least with her, you don't know.
Right. And that's the thing, because the tension and threat she's under is not will
Death.
she or won't she die? It's will she get caught?
Yeah.
That is a very different type of tension, and one that could
Mhm.
totally and legitimately happen to her in the course of the show, and
Exactly.
you don't know.
Hmm.
Because it doesn't necessarily impact her being where she needs to be later. It may just influence how she decides and leads at that point,
Yeah.
right? So those types of characters and the kind of threat they're put under, like Bix, the threat she's put under, and just kind of the general risk that's over all of them with what they're doing with the Empire
Yeah.
is great. I think they handled that really well. They did a really good job of looking at the characters and saying, well, we can't be like, whoa, episode 4 ends on will Cassian fall from this cliff? Tune in next
Yeah,
time.
they
We
didn't
can't
do
do
that,
that. It
thank
doesn't
God.
work. And they didn't do that. And surprise, it's a much better show. It's a much more it's something that's much easier to become invested in, right? Like
Yeah.
you go to Obi-Wan, like I'm not not going to get that invested in Leia's safety, all right? Because
Yeah.
Well, because
she's gonna be fine.
Yeah, you
Right.
know where she lands, and with this, you really only have one character that we know really how their story pans out.
Right. Most of these other characters, we don't really have a good grasp on how they end up.
Yeah.
Or how they get to where they even if we know their life, we don't know the chunks in between. I really like that they brought back, I just forgot his name, Saw Gerrera.
So,
Yeah.
well,
Forrest Whitaker.
yeah.
Forrest
Well,
Whitaker.
hold on.
Deception.
That's a spoiler.
That's not a spoiler.
Yeah, it is. Well, okay, it's not.
I don't. I didn't tell you anything about
Is
what
it in
happens
the
with
trailer?
him.
No, but it was revealed. Like basically, Skarsgård accidentally revealed that Forrest
Forrest
Whitaker
Whitaker.
was going to be
Yeah.
in the show
Okay.
in an interview before.
I remember it coming
do we
up
wanna-
that
Came out.
Forrest. We're fine.
Okay.
I'm not going to say anything about what he does or not. I just like that we get these kinds of characters. Again, it's a Rogue One connection,
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
also it lets you see him from an earlier era, right?
it does. Where he's
Yeah.
not as, I'll say, decrepit or on the downturn. Of
He's
his
also
health.
not as far out in terms of like the paranoia and the I go my own way.
Well, I don't know,
all-
he's still pretty paranoid.
I mean, he's but
But,
he,
okay,
but you can
turning
see
it-
where he's going. But anyways,
Turning it back more general thought. We're getting into like a lot of
Nitty-gritty,
nitty-gritty stuff.
nitty-gritty.
he
here.
started it.
I know. I'm trying to steer this boat before we go off the cliff here. So like,
that's not how boats work.
general thoughts. That's why I'm so
Waterfall.
nervous right now. So generally, I
Yeah.
enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good. I thought the acting was great. I think the cinematography and editing, the production value was so much better
Oh,
than the
yeah.
other
Than anything
Disney
else
Plus
we've
series.
seen so far.
And again, they do a really good job of building tension. And for me, it was a very adult Star Wars story. And that's what I wanted. I don't know if it's just like I was craving it right
Mhm.
now.
If for whatever
Or
reason
what?
you've been waiting to see it and you're listening to this cast now and you have kids and they want to see it, they're probably going to be really bored.
Yeah, kids would probably
Yeah,
be
that's-
bored.
That is probably the Achilles heel of this show.
Yeah.
It is.
For most of its existence, Star Wars has been, if not kid friendly, at least open to kids, like kid receptive.
Yeah.
I'd say it's
No, it's
mostly
mostly
made
for
for
It's
kids.
mostly
yeah.
pandered to kids.
But
Yeah.
this is definitely not that.
no,
No,
they're
yeah,
gonna be
this-
bored to tears.
If you've seen Rogue One, it's kind of like that.
But a
it's
little
the
bit
first
more augmented.
3/4 of Rogue
Yeah.
One.
But I mean, in
Yeah.
terms of like being for kids or not,
Yeah.
I don't know if kids would love Rogue One. You know what I mean?
They would like the last.
They like the
part
last
of it.
bit, yeah.
The big battle is
yeah,
that-
but that's a lot of sit through to get
kids.
to that for
Kids love death. Okay, they'll sit through a lot for.
They
it.
love pathos and like
Murder.
father-daughter relationships. and-
Yeah, unless you're an '80s kid and you've watched Labyrinth, and
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
you were raised on Labyrinth, The Dark Crystal.
just so
then
much.
settle in. It's gonna
Goonies.
wash
uh,
over you like a warm blanket, kid.
Oh man, I was trying to think. What was the Never-Ending Story?
yeah.
There's another. Oh, I mean, Caravan of Courage.
Yeah, Princess Bride,
Battle of
Yeah.
Endor. Like if you stare at your wrist and think about that bracelet and like, was that a fever dream? No, one, no, it was real, and two, you're ready for Andor because, yeah,
Yeah.
you were already scarred. You're fine.
All right. So, since we're not doing scores anymore, if this is the first time that you are listening to an episode and you haven't listened to Black Panther, which is when we announced it, we are no longer doing scores for spectacle, performance, score, plot, and entertainment. We are still keeping those categories. However, we are just moving away from the score part of it. It allows us to a little bit more options, I think. for
It makes
older
dialogue
films
and discussion about it a lot easier.
A
Just
lot
in
more
general.
natural, and we
Yeah.
can review whatever we want. We don't have to worry about like, should we review The Room by
Or-
Tommy Wiseau?
or
Should we
should
give that a
we-
3? Like,
Yeah.
how do we do this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or do we want to review, Monty Python and the Holy Grail? Like,
Right, yeah.
how do you score that? So we're
that's
just
a 10 in entertainment.
Yeah. So we're moving away from those,
Mhm.
and we are now going straight for just do you recommend it? Do you want to rewatch it? Those kind of things. Do you hate it? I hope not because this show is fantastic.
Rabble, rabble, rabble.
So I'll just go ahead and start. I loved it. I've
Yeah.
already rewatched it once.
Andrew, would you rewatch it?
100%.
He turns around. I would not recommend it. I would never rewatch it again. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, it was. I think it was better on the second time watching it
Really?
because
I bet.
you
Well, it's
get a lot
easier
more of the
to
character
catch.
nuances.
Yeah,
Mm.
and it's easier to like pay attention to backgrounds at that point too,
Yeah.
and see small interactions.
Yeah, you get a little bit more details out of it
Mhm.
than what you're paying attention to in the moment because you kind of know, okay, I know what happens in this conversation.
Yeah.
I can kind of look around instead of like paying attention to just what he's saying.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Ryan?
So I obviously said I loved it. I would only recommend it though if you want a more adult Star Wars story similar to that of like the first 3/4 of Rogue One. Like if you want people smacking each other with lightsabers, this
I
ain't
mean,
for you.
you get
If
a
you
little
want-
bit of the end of Rogue One. We do get a couple of space fights they're not large in scale.
but generally speaking,
Yeah,
It's mostly on the ground.
you're gonna get more out of it if you're into espionage, political intrigue,
Heists.
the beginning of the the rebellion and heists and
Yeah.
like those types of things are what this show excels at, and that's what it is. So I would recommend it if that's the kind of Star Wars you're in the mood for.
Yeah.
I would definitely rewatch this.
Mhm.
I probably won't watch it like soon, but like. It'll definitely be in the rotation, when we rewatch stuff, especially after we watch, or maybe before we rewatch Rogue One,
Yeah.
and definitely before season 2 comes out. I'll probably rewatch
Well,
this.
and the only reason I actually did rewatch it was one of my friends hadn't seen it yet,
Mhm.
and we were on. It was like it was basically the week before the finale came out, and we had 6 hours to kill. I was like, oh, we're gonna watch the first 6 episodes,
Yeah,
and that's what we did. And I was like, well, I'm already here, so I'm just gonna keep going.
I've already committed this part. Yeah. Steven, what about you?
So on recommend, I definitely would.
Mhm.
I liked it a lot. Again, if you're an adult fan of Star Wars, so if you are the fan who slogged through the first 2 seasons of Clone Wars to get to when it actually gets good, to when they finally realize, hey, it's not just for kids,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you are most likely someone who needs to be watching this, right? It does not really pull punches. It's like I really hate to be like it's 2022 and I am watching a darker, grittier Star Wars.
But it is darker.
But in a lot of ways, well, I wouldn't even say it's darker.
It's just adult.
It's just kind of the dirty underbelly of a rebellion, right?
Right,
yeah.
The kind of choices that have to be made, and they make a lot of sense in context when you get to Rogue One and you meet Andor and the way he makes decisions and
yeah.
how callous he can be at times, right? These kinds of things, they add up throughout this.
Yeah.
And I think they do a really brilliant job with that. So if you are on the fence, definitely give it a shot. I'd give it more than the first 3 episodes to really just let it build some steam. On a rewatch, I will most likely be rewatching this fairly soon. The wife started with me, and she was not like crazy into it or against it, but she just couldn't commit to the kind of watch pace I had to do to get through this. So she only made it through like 2 episodes. So I will most likely be rewatching this pretty soon,
Okay.
and I am super fine with that.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
All right, guys. So, obviously we're kind of at the spoiler wall here, and what that generally means is
We're
that
stuck in a spoiler.
we're like the guys from Superman that get stuck in the box and thrown into the black hole.
Let's not. No.
But yeah, okay. So if you've liked what you've heard so far, that's great. But if you are kind
Congratulations.
of you did it. You did it.
We're proud of you.
Congratulations. But seriously, if you have gotten this far and you're like, I actually haven't watched Andor all the way through yet, and I want to stop off here, don't wait. Go listen to some of our other episodes while you are sitting in the car, at work, whatever.
Doing
We
that
have some
commute life.
Awesome ones. Rings
Working
of
out
Power.
at the gym, getting some insane gains.
Get that swole.
Yeah, there you go.
Get your swole on. Listen to House of the Dragon.
Yeah, House of the Dragon. We have Blade Runner, Alien, like
Wakanda Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other
Prey.
Star Wars shows like Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah, there you go. If you really want to do it,
Check it out.
but if you really have liked what you heard, toss us a like, toss us a subscription,
Yes.
maybe a review. That would be fantastic.
Especially on Apple.
Especially on iTunes, please.
You didn't hear it here first. Maybe
But
you
for
did.
real,
I don't know.
Give us a review on any platform. Whatever
We'll
you
take
listen
it.
on,
Yeah.
give us the
Tell
review.
your cat, your
Yeah.
dog, your family, your friends.
Your friends.
Yes.
Mostly your friends.
Mostly
Mostly
your
your
friends.
friends. Tell them, please.
Tell your spouse.
Buy your cat an iPhone and tell them to review us on Apple's iTunes.
Yeah.
And we are back from the spoiler wall.
Survived once again.
Yes.
Made our way out.
We are talking about Andor, all 12 episodes. If you have not watched all 12 episodes and you don't like spoilers, this is now when you need to stop.
Yeah, this is your
Take
last
the
stop,
off-ramp.
last
This
call.
is your last chance.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just going to jump right into it.
Yeah.
We're talking spectacle.
Who
What-
wants it first?
Not
I'll
me.
go first.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, not to repeat what I said earlier, but I think it looks great.
No,
I
you are
think-
repeating what you said earlier.
I think I am. I'm about to. Buckle up. No, it not shooting on the volume made such a difference.
Huge difference.
Universes of
That
difference.
and if you don't know, the volume is just a big like LCD surround like set that they use to like do set extensions using like Unreal Engine and like 3D graphics and stuff.
It's like a green screen, except it's actually on the screen.
It's like so the actors can see what they're looking at in the environment they're in. They're not just on a green screen.
and
so
it is a cool piece of technology.
And it
And I'll
helps.
say-
It helps with lighting, helps with reflections, right? So it was first really
Yes.
used for the Mandalorian when you have this really shiny armor, and
Yeah.
they just they could not say to these poor visual artists, "Hey, go in there and draw in the sun reflection for
Oh, God.
or
like
hey, I need you
6,000
to key
frames."
something out, but all of his armor is going to reflect the green. So good
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah,
Yeah. So like that's probably why they did it. But
yes, it is.
with the Mandalorian, I thought their use of the volume was good.
Yeah.
Like I don't remember there being like a ton of scenes. I was like, ugh. It's
Well,
when we
he
got
never-
into Book of Boba Fett. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
was saying, the Mando never really gets out there and just puts the pedal down and runs after someone, and that really helps with the
Yeah.
volume because it's much more. It's a western, right? It's a classic, you
Yeah.
know, 6-shooter on your hip western where he's got the slow, deliberate pace down the
Yeah.
middle of the town,
Yeah.
right? It works great for that because it's only so big.
Yeah, it is. But in Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan both, the
you really
shows
saw the limitations.
felt
Mhm.
cheap. There was multiple times where it felt cheap because I guess either of an issue with the volume
Yeah.
or maybe it was cheap. Maybe they skimped out on something. But Andor feels expensive. That's the way I would describe it to someone who doesn't
Rich.
know a lot about like filmmaking.
Rich
It's
in
like
history.
it feels like the CG's good. Like
Yeah, I didn't see anything in the
Yeah.
CG where I was like, oh, that's a paddling.
especially for a television show
Yeah.
level budget, like it went to me, it was punching above its weight a lot
way
of time.
above.
Mhm.
Because there's so many scenes from again Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan where I was like, this looks like
What if we're
this is
in the
on
desert
TNT.
again?
Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing?
Well, in the one big space section that we get
Yeah.
with Luthen basically kind of dogging out a patrol cruiser,
Yeah, evading.
it was
yeah.
so good.
and it looked fantastic.
Okay, up to a point. I have one
Get outta
small.
here.
Get out
one
of here. It
small
looks great all the way
nitpick.
to the end.
I
You're
don't.
crazy.
This ship-based lightsaber thing
No,
is
no,
not.
no.
I'm not here for that.
That's
I
totally,
love that. I was on
That's
board with
dumb.
that.
That was
it-
incredibly
That's
dumb.
that is a plot.
That's a plot problem.
That is a plot.
That's a
problem.
plot problem, and
Nope.
we can leave it there.
It was a spectacle fantastic. Really twist that thing. Anyways, the other thing I'll say too is that like it's not only that like the CG was good and that like you know the lighting was good and all that, it's the shots are composed really well.
Oh,
And there's a
yeah.
lot of very
Oh.
memorable frames,
Mhm.
which
Alright,
I
so-
think Mando does a pretty good job of that too. There's a lot of shots of
Ryan, I'm gonna let you finish, but I'm gonna jump in here for a second.
like, okay, well
You
that's
had
not
the
how
best spectacle
that's not how
review of
letting
all
finish
time.
works.
Oh no, I'm jumping in here for a second.
Uh-huh.
So, I have gotten so sick
Yeah.
between stuff like Netflix's live-action Cowboy Bebop, Amazon's Wheel of Time.
Ugh.
Everything looking like a stage.
Yes,
Yeah.
this middle ground lens that sits chest height, doesn't
yeah.
move.
Yeah.
I like when we hit a show like this, right?
Yeah.
And we get this, late. I don't remember if it was episode 11 or 12, but there's like the shot of the liquid in the glass on top of B, and it's
Oh, yeah.
rocking as
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
rocks.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Get the camera low. Get the camera
Intimate.
wide. Bring it real close. Bring it real far away. Do funky things. Give me
Do
some
dynamic
really
stuff with it. Move it
sharp,
around.
sharp lighting. Give me shadow on one side,
Mhm.
highlight on the other, key light the eye in the
Mhm.
shadow. Like they nailed that kind of stuff over and over and over and over again. And it feels so like just that little elevation of
Yeah.
literally we just take the camera off the tripod
Right.
and or like make the poor dude wearing the big gimbal suit, lay down on the ground. That little extra shift
Yeah.
takes it so much further than so many shows have felt that have come out lately.
Yeah.
Well, and two, like, and this will be the wrap up, and I'll let you jump in, Andrew, or somebody else. Is like the variety of different locales and sets we get. That are all
Yes.
out. Like
Man.
the prison and like the way
Mhm.
it's designed and laid out was like the way they had the cells are just kind of like these weird,
Yeah.
like
Oh,
stair
that,
steppy
that
cubicles.
prison was a horror.
Yeah.
Like a nightmare. I hope you don't
And- and-
sleepwalk.
and
so
the what was it called? The eye.
just the eye.
Just the eye.
Yeah.
Like that whole
Oh.
planet. And then when that was happening, I was like, this is great. Like,
but also just that planet in general, right? We
Yeah.
went like to like the Highlands kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's about as far from Tatooine as we can get, and I'm here for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. So the prison itself was actually very modeled after THX.
Oh,
1138.
yeah, I did have
which was
THX
one of
1138.
George Lucas's early films before Star Wars.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so the one thing that this is kind of more entertainment level stuff, but the one thing I love is that Tony Gilroy came out and said, he's like, we are not going to rely on Easter eggs and nostalgia for a lot of these things in the show.
To push the story
Yeah.
along.
Yeah.
But they're still there. Like, so
Just a little
the
bit.
patrol cruiser in the 9th episode or 10th episode or whatever,
10th, I think.
whenever Lucen's trying to escape it, like that's a Cantwell class. It's basically the proto Star Destroyer concept art. That and there's no way you haven't heard it by this point if you've already listening to this, but it's basically just one of the early renditions of what they wanted the Star Destroyer to look like.
With
And
big
then they
dishes up
changed it.
front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that they brought that in as an actual thing, and it's been in something else as well before this, but this was like the first live action kind of thing.
So
for
it's
it.
probably in like Rebels or Clone Wars.
Yeah,
or
maybe
something
something like
Yeah.
And it's just really fun whenever you have those little bits in there.
Yeah.
And
Well, and that's a different. This is not. How did Cassian get his dice?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's not
we,
one of
we
those.
don't need to know that. So I loved. I mean, it was just beautiful.
Like, how did
the whole
Cassian
show.
get his blaster?
Well,
we don't need
funny
to, we don't need
thing
to know
you
that.
say
He just has it.
So the blaster he has is a Briar pistol, which was first introduced by Kyle Katarn in Dark Forces.
Oh,
And that is his signature blaster you start out with in every game.
it's a great blaster.
It's a great blaster.
So I do want to jump in and also say that the costuming looks
it's
really
just
good.
phenomenal.
They put a lot into small background details.
The wall of gloves for all of the workers
Oh,
on
that was such a
Ferrix.
great
cool
touch.
touch too.
Yeah. I thought that was cool. The just the whole sequence actually in the first 3 episodes or the third episode with the actual with them like kind of escaping on the speeder bike and stuff actually looked quite good. Like that's probably the closest to like the green screen's a little weird for this.
But see, I would say it's not that the green screen's weird. It's just the first time you've noticed that it's green screen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still really good.
Oh,
Like
still
for a
good,
key,
yeah.
it's the first time where you can go, oh, that's probably green screen.
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's still executed highly. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I guess is the way I would put it.
hmm So the one thing that I had a little bit of trivia here for the Aldani eye sequence, right? So the whole show is being shot pretty much right when COVID started.
Right.
And because of COVID restrictions, they were planning on having like thousands of people for the eye.
Oh, like the pilgrimage?
Yeah, the actual
Yeah.
pilgrimage.
Wow.
And they had to rewrite that entire section of the film and how the heist worked to fit the
So they
limitation of
did-
how many people that they had.
It's plot, but they did a really good job with that
Oh, they did a fantastic
because they made it make sense
job.
and they made the Empire feel much more menacing in kind of the deliberate way that it's choking
Yeah, it's like,
cultures
oh,
out.
we put these, comfort
stations,
stations or
cheap,
whatever.
cheap drinks, easy women. They'll be like only like 50 people will make it the
Yeah,
whole way.
and that really, I think it made it the better because it
Yeah.
really does drive down what the Empire is trying to do to these
the
people.
way the boot really works with it, the slow pressure.
Yeah.
But
Ste-
that's not really that's all
that's not
plot.
spectacle.
But yes,
Okay,
that's
so
fine.
Steven,
Yeah.
what
But-
do you think?
I mean, like we went to Ferrix, we went to Coruscant, we went to
Aldani,
Aldani. I keep trying to call it Arlindal. for some
Narkina
reason.
5.
Sure.
Yeah.
Narkina
And
5.
then we went to Miami.
Yeah, we also went to Miami. Yes, but we hit all these locations. They all look different. Most of them we haven't been to. Right?
Yeah.
Coruscant's it basically.
Yeah.
It still
and
looks
even
great.
then Coruscant, well, actually, never mind. We had the prequels. Continue.
We've seen a lot of it in the prequels.
Yeah.
But it has a good feel. They did a great job where every time we're on a new planet, they didn't necessarily have to say, "Hey, we're on a new planet." You knew, right?
Yeah.
Because
Everything
what-
was visually distinct.
right.
Well,
what-
and everything had like the wall of gloves is a good like analog for like each place had like a unique twist or feel.
well, and
about
you
it.
could-
they all
tell-
had a culture to
Yeah,
them.
you
They all
can
had
tell
an
the
underlying
culture
purpose.
of Ferrix the second that you saw the buildings.
right.
Right, and you see the guys come out and get the gloves, and you're like, okay, this is like the hard luck
Blue
worker
collar.
town.
Yeah.
Yeah, like these kinds of things were very, very obvious, and it's a great example of like show, don't tell.
Yeah.
And it had we didn't have to get here's your star crawl, read a couple paragraphs about where we're going. No, none of that. Right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
happen.
just show us.
Yeah.
We don't need anything else. Like man, it's just such a beautiful show. Okay, so we're gonna move on to performance,
Yes.
Yes.
which is probably my favorite of the entire show.
Well, then lead off.
I mean, If I was giving scores, I would give this a 10.
La-dee-da.
No, I mean,
La-di-da.
so, like, I know we're going to talk about Skarsgård. We're going to talk about Diego Luna. We're going to talk about Genevieve O'Reilly.
Go off, son. Give me a deep cut.
Honestly, I think of my favorite guy,
Here it is.
Anton Lesser.
Okay.
He is the major ISB guy. Like, so he's
Oh,
just
he killed it.
oh, he's just the bureaucrat. Just
Yeah.
like, what do we do here? That speech was phenomenal.
He's the guy. Talking about like treating the symptoms versus he is such a perfect
give me
imperial
more of
bureaucrat.
that.
Yeah. He was in Game of Thrones. I think he was Qyburn or he
yeah,
was one of
like,
the maesters.
he's been in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But so when I saw him, I was like, oh, it's that dude. This guy, like for me, like when he plays that role of like just the bureaucratic, like, like just
It's just a stick in the mud.
I was trying to,
not curse.
yes, I was trying to think of a way to say it without cursing. This is a very hard leg man.
Bureaucratic. Hey, wait, hold on.
He's a mean boy, but good at being mean.
But he did
Yeah.
great. So one of my other favorites was Brasso, Joplin Sibtain. Sibtain?
Sure.
Okay, who's that?
Sibtai.
Give me some context here.
But no, Brasso, he's the his friend.
Oh
With
yeah,
with
the other,
brick.
yeah.
The
Yeah,
dude
yeah.
that takes a brick of ashes and beats fascists with it. It's
Yeah.
great.
he did a really good job.
He did.
Yeah.
I think probably my favorite scene with him was after Marva passes away, and he's having this conversation with essentially just a droid that can be programmed
Yeah.
into anything, and he's having an actual conversation with this, and he feels for this droid,
Yeah.
and you can tell like it's so like it's heart wrenching because I love B4. Like BMO is amazing.
Oh yeah.
And
Great droid.
yeah.
Of all, like his voice actor, when you look at it on Google for cast, isn't actually credited. It's Dave Chapman.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just a veteran puppeteer. So he's done a lot of work on other Star Wars things.
Mm-hmm.
But man, like that droid, that is a rectangle on wheels, and I love it.
It's so
Yeah.
cute.
And he
Okay, so-
repeats
so-
himself. Like,
Oh, yeah.
man, it's just so
yeah.
endearing.
Well, and he's so sad, and he's like, but I'm charging.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Someone else go.
I mean, I want to shout out Kyle Solar, who played
Cyril.
Cyril.
Oh yeah, he was great.
and his mother.
And okay,
I gotta make a call to your
the
uncle.
interaction between the two of them is so good because you immediately know like where this guy's come from.
Well, and
Your
it's
blue Fruit Loops.
It's actually a really nuanced storytelling as well because you can tell the second that he comes home and she starts talking to him, like
Oh yeah.
you can tell that's how he became who he is.
Oh,
no,
yeah, instantly.
In like a few sentences.
Yeah.
You already are like, okay, I get why this guy's how he is.
Well, and it's
This makes
not
so much
that,
more sense now.
It's not that he's like an empire lover. He just wants to be someone.
Yeah.
And the Empire is where you can
And
be
the empire
someone.
is where he
Yeah.
can be someone.
Well, and just his performance, when he is like thinking he's so self-righteous, and then when everything goes belly up, and his reactions are like, I mean, they're so good.
Yeah.
And he just like the way he portrayed like being just obsessed with Cassian, and
Yeah.
the idea of redeeming himself was like, I don't know. I thought he did really good.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, what do you
Steven?
think?
So I'm gonna shout out Denise Go.
Oh yeah.
So Deidre.
Yeah. She has
Oh,
eye
yeah.
twitch.
Uh,
Perfect.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
she has this incredible like resting scowl where
Mhm.
she just looks around. She's just generally dissatisfied with what she sees, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
Like that little downturn at the end of her lip, like so good. Like this is the perfect imperial
Well,
bureaucrat,
the
like
thing that-
ISB officer.
Well, and she's so like detestable as a like
A character?
bad guy,
Oh.
but I could not wait to see her on screen.
Oh
every
yeah, well
time.
she
Oh,
made
yeah.
things
Yeah.
happen, right?
Yeah.
Well, and that shows that she is a good actor because she's making you be like, ooh, I don't like you. You are a bad person.
I know.
But I also kind of want to see this.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I want to see how this plays out because you got me. Yeah.
But then to flip it a little bit away from the bad guys, Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon
Yeah.
Mothma,
Oh yeah.
and then of course Stellan Skarsgård. So their interactions, especially like early on when they're in the the antique store
Mm-hmm.
and he's selling her an artifact, but he's really selling her like information.
Yeah.
They're discussing the plan as the undertones. All of those interactions are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, just give me a whole. Don't give me a whole lot of that because at some point it would get old.
Sure.
But as the scenes land in between things, perfect.
They and this is really more plot, but they really did such a good job at peppering in these kind of like subterfuge and like political drama with Mon Mothma, and I'm glad that it was few and far between, so it didn't really like take away from a lot of the main drama that's happening with
Yeah.
Cassian. But every time that you're like, ooh, yeah, we're on Coruscant, let's see what's going on now, because you have the really strained relationship with her and her daughter, her and her husband. Then, the actual drama of her like trying not to get caught, that she's essentially funding a rebellion.
She's trying to launder money and she's not good at it.
Yeah, she's not good at it at all. And you just get so many good little tidbits in there. And I'm really happy too, because Genevieve O'Reilly was technically in Return of the Revenge of the Sith. There we go. Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
Yeah,
The last prequel.
Yeah, she was technically in there, but in a deleted scene that George Lucas left out.
Oh, okay.
So she was essentially the replacement actor for the original Mon Mothma actress, and then in Rogue One, she finally got
She's
a little
in Rogue
bit.
One. Yeah.
But she finally, with this show, she finally actually got to be the character.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She nails it too.
Oh yes,
And I mean, I don't think we have to go too far on to Stellan Skarsgård. I mean, like
He just is, right?
he just nails it. And the oscillating between being like putting on the face and being part of
the
you know,
scene where he is in the back of his ship, like flying in, and he's changing from
Oh, yeah.
and he's like doing the fake.
agent, and he's practicing, he's like getting in character. It's
Yeah.
like, I'm watching an actor in character get in character to
Yeah.
act as someone else. Like, this is so meta, and I love it.
two more quick shout outs, right?
All right, all
Number
right.
one is for the actress Bronte Carmichael, who played Leda, which is Mon Mothma's very, very angsty teenage daughter.
Perfect.
And she did fantastic. And the in one of the later episodes when her aunt comes to visit, and she is so excited, and she just looks over at Mon Mothma with this look.
That's so good.
Like at that point, I would have been like, I'm definitely gonna sell this girl off to this like skeezy dude's kid. Like,
we're arranging this marriage
yeah,
right now.
I'm gonna sign the papers now. This kid,
She's out of
here.
The other shout out I was gonna say real quick, Luthen's right hand lady.
Oh, she was great.
Claire, I don't know the
Clea.
actress.
Her name, Clea. Yeah, she did such a good job of like trying to be the voice of reason, and you're never fully like, are they like husband and wife? Are they like father daughter? Are they like best friends? Are they just like two pieces of this rebellion?
Yeah.
But like their dynamic was like great.
So, and she feels like one of those characters that have no problem killing Luthen if it was going to do the rebellion good.
She's a true
Right.
believer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, her interaction at the end with Vel, when she comes in and it's like, I have to get in contact with Luthen, and she like dresses her down, was just like, one, great, because Vel as a character is really hard to like.
Yeah.
I think she's not a good leader.
She's not a good leader, and she's not a very good character either.
No, like I
In
don't.
some respects,
Like, I don't
yeah.
think there's nothing wrong with the performance.
No,
right?
no, yeah.
From
She plays it well.
Faye Marseille. It's just the character as portrayed is not really someone that you're rooting for of all the candidates here, right?
Yeah, because she feels kind of like she's way out of her depth.
Big time, but
Yeah.
still in charge and just doesn't understand how to be in charge.
Yeah.
So obviously, we'll have another season and maybe that character gets more seasoning and more developing. We'll find out. But yeah, that interaction between them when she is just like, I don't know, she's like, well, I brought him this. I brought him the name of the planet that I can't remember. Starts with the name.
Aldani?
Aldani.
Yeah.
I'm trying to call it something. Arlindal.
Yeah. Arlindal.
Arlindal.
It's like somewhere in Virginia. Take the exit to Arlindal. They got a good Wendy's there.
Just don't stop at the Loves. It's not a really good
Do
one.
not stop at the Loves in Arlindal.
I've forgotten the name of the planet already, but it's okay.
Aldani?
Aldani.
I brought her Aldani, or I brought him Aldani, and Clay is just like, I manage, I don't know what the exact word was like. I manage, awesome or events every week.
Yeah.
You're just one of them.
Yeah, you just happen to be the one that I'm talking to.
Aldani
right
was
now.
a Tuesday for me.
Yeah.
So kind of
When M. Clea visited your village.
Yeah, exactly.
so
Bison
speaking
speech.
on some more fantastic female characters, Fiona Shaw as Marva.
Oh,
was
yeah.
just her two speeches that she got. One at the beginning of the Reckoning episode, where she's just like wigging the security guard out that hung back.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and he's like, "What's happening?" She was like, "This is just how it starts."
You don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about it when it's making noise. What you have to worry about it is when it stops.
Ugh.
Oh,
And
like,
then her final speech, obviously after she's passed away, and
Oh,
she
yeah.
has the hollow rebellion speech essentially,
yeah.
and like it's really heartfelt, and you really feel kind of what's happening in that scene,
Yeah.
and because it's one of those things where like all of those people in that funeral procession, they weren't going there to fight the Empire.
Mhm.
And they
No.
got to that point, and they were like, you know what?
We're going to fight the
We're gonna
Empire.
fight the Empire.
I mean, a couple of them went there to fight the Empire.
Oh, probably.
Sure.
Well, I mean, one of them pulls a pipe bomb out of his bag. He
Well,
went there to fight the Empire.
That's a whole different thing.
I know, but
But yeah. I mean, Brasso brought the brick, so
Well, and I thought too for
That
her
wasn't there for
specifically, her actress, like the cool thing we get is that you don't ever see like a lot of scenes with her and Cassian like growing up, getting to love each other, getting
Yeah.
to know each other, but you can just tell between their interactions how much they care about each
Yeah.
other. And the acting on display with like the two of them like going back and forth was like it told so much just in the moments between words, that
Well,
like,
especially when Cassian comes home for the first time,
Yeah.
and you get to see their first interactions with it, and like you can tell that he genuinely cares for her,
yeah.
but he's clearly messed up a lot.
yeah.
And
So
yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna jump in with my final shout outs here. A pair of Alexes. So we have
Everybody needs a good pair of Alex.
No, hey, sometimes we have Alex Ferns. So he's the corporate sergeant.
Is he
Cyril's
old-
Cyril's right hand man, the Scottish.
Oh, yeah,
yeah. He's
That dude's
like,
a hard leg.
as soon as he walks on screen, it's like, man, I know exactly what this character is gonna be, and I love it.
I know.
Yeah.
You know his type
Well,
from the get.
Yeah.
The best part though is I guess in episode 3, whenever he's like gearing up for the conflict that's about to happen, he just takes a swig of his thing. He's like, "Oh yes, this is exactly what I'm here for."
This is what we
dude-
trained for.
This dude is absolutely from space Scotland,
Yeah.
New Scotlandia or whatever. And then Alex Lothar.
Yeah.
So that's Karis Nemec.
Oh, Nemec was
So
great.
he's
Which
the
one?
idealist in the heist.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So he's basically Mouse from the Matrix.
Yeah.
It's the same character role essentially.
Well, and he's really the kind of what turns Cassian to
It's a big part of
a
it.
rebellion leader.
yeah, it has to be a big part. I mean, you have the manifesto handed over,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
like just his sheer idealism coming through and kind of like the just kind of being like the young kid in the rebellion.
Yeah.
I think he did a great job. And like as soon as he started actually having real interactions with Andor, I was like, this kid's gonna die.
He, like,
Yeah.
like both Holly and I were like, "Oh no, he's gonna die," and then
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, he's almost no."
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, he's not gonna die. He's gonna die tragically.
Yeah.
Well, and that type of character has the danger of being annoying, or like depending on how they
Like
they
being
play
too
it.
overzealous.
abrasive.
Yeah,
or, yeah.
And like in a lesser show, like an Obi-Wan or Boba Fett, that would have been like a very like annoying.
We wouldn't have gone.
character.
No, we've gone. Yeah,
Yeah. I want to shout out everybody in the heist too, like all those
Yeah.
characters.
Oh,
are great,
yeah.
but I cannot let us continue until we shout out Andy Serkis, who
Yes.
gives one of his best performances as this just grizzled
Union leader.
yeah,
So-
like
so I
prison
was-
leader.
Scrolling through reviews right before I actually got to the prison episode,
Yeah,
and someone was like, "Andy Serkis just gives the most Andy Serkis performance ever," and that's not a
No.
compliment. And I was like,
What?
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 Well, now I have to watch the episode. I watched. I was like, "What were you on?"
Yeah,
Like, this is like one of his best.
this is seriously one of his best, and he's a really
Yeah.
good actor. I've seen him in other stuff where he's not Gollum.
I mean,
where he's like really
I'll say,
good.
I've seen him flopping around in a river
Right.
in a motion capture suit.
My
It's great
favorite-
acting.
favorite part though is when like Cassian's trying to get him on board and all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and then the old dude dies, and they're walking, they're on program, and they got their hands up, and he's like, because earlier he'd asked
Yeah.
him how many
Yeah.
guards there are, and he won't answer him, and he's like, "There's never more than 12," and I was like, yes,
Yes.
like I was so
and that's
excited
like
when
the
that
last
happened.
line of the episode. You're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, yeah, here
that's-
we
Yeah,
go."
because
Yes.
you know where we're going. I was a
Yeah.
little sad that we had like the "I can't swim" line, and then like his cameo role was over.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah,
But
and
I think that's the beauty of the
it is.
show.
It is. You get a lot of people who show up for 2 episodes. They have an impact,
And you fall in love with them.
and yeah, and you really like them. Like we're gonna get into this in plot.
I want to change my
entertainment.
answer from earlier. That's the spinoff I want. Is Andy
Andy
Serkis'
Serkis?
character.
Just
it's Kino Loy.
It's just
Yeah,
him
the whole time.
rising up through the prison.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to because we can talk.
We can talk
We'll talk
forever.
The
about
performances were really good. If you can't
I
tell.
can't figure this out.
and we'll talk about Diego Luna and Skarsgård as we get more into plot. I
Yeah.
think, anyways, because they're tour de force.
Yeah,
It goes
I
without
feel
saying,
like
they
I feel
did
like
a
we
fantastic
didn't really
job.
say much about Cassian at Diego Luna.
Yeah.
but it's worth saying. He's good. He's great. Don't worry about it. It's a good
He
performance.
gives
Yep.
a lot of depth to the
Yeah.
character.
He does.
He's fantastic.
But he was always, from Rogue One on, you knew, like, man, this guy like gets this character.
I mean, Diego Luna is a really good actor.
Yeah.
Everything I've ever seen him in, I'm like, this guy's like
Yeah, he's got
knocking
it.
out of the park. Yeah. So he
He's got the
continues to do
spark.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So
music.
we're gonna move the score, not the score of the score.
Not the score.
We
the
don't
score,
have that
just the
anymore.
score.
Yeah.
Haha, there was a rhyme. You see it? Okay. So so Nicholas Britell
Mhm.
composed the whole soundtrack for this.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him.
He
And
did a really good
he
job.
Really
killed
good
it.
job.
So I think one of my favorite parts about his whole soundtrack, and I've pretty much listened to it on repeat for a couple
Yeah.
weeks now, is you have some really fantastic themes that show up,
Mhm.
and he has a lot of leitmotifs throughout other tracks that aren't on brand with that then pull in the theme of Andor, pull in the theme of Mirror, and it's just it's just so good. But it is not a Star Wars track.
No, but it's got like almost a some synth wavy almost type of sounds to it.
Mhm.
Definitely, like there's definitely some synths at play.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I don't know. I really liked it. Like when it started, for me, it's like the Mandalorian. Everybody talks about
Yeah,
the
it's
theme
got a
song to
good
that,
theme.
and it has a spaghetti western feel.
It does.
This to me still feels like it can exist within the Star Wars universe, but
100%.
it definitely is not like your John Williams, bombastic
yeah, no,
score
it's
type stuff.
absolutely
You don't
not a
have the
John Williams.
horns. You don't have this like massive fanfare.
But
And it is not emphatically Star Wars.
But it fits the tone,
It
I
does.
thought, really, really well.
And I think it's good that he stayed away from the standard Star Wars stuff, because it is not this. I'm not going to say campy, because like Star Wars can be campy.
Yeah.
But it has more of like a kind of larger than life feel for a lot of the films.
Yeah.
Where this is obviously much more grounded, much more personal,
Much more
intimate.
subdued in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And with that, you need a soundtrack that really mimics that. And I think he did a fantastic job.
He
And
did
I
great.
literally never heard of this guy before, ever.
No. Well, and I didn't look anything up on the show before we started watching
Yeah.
it. And like when the first time the intro played,
Mhm.
and like the title comes in, I was like, ooh.
Oh yeah.
Ooh. I was like, this is different. I like this.
So my two favorite tracks
Mhm.
is from the third episode. So the first one happens whenever it's the flashback on Canary when he's like basically breaking all of the mirrors, or not mirrors, but like all the reflective surfaces.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
the track is just called Mirror. And it has a really good just overtone to it. And it mixes in the Andor theme in there. And then the second one is at the end of the episode, whenever he's basically leaving the planet with Luthen and remembering leaving Canary, basically with Marva.
Oh yeah.
And you
yeah.
have that dichotomy of basically like, one story ending, one story beginning, one story ending, one story beginning. And it's just phenomenal, because you really get hit with the emotions there. And I
Yeah.
really picked it up the second time watching it,
Yeah.
because you now have a better understanding of kind of like where the relationship was going.
Well, I was gonna say now I want to rewatch it because I
Yeah.
didn't catch that when I first saw that.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Yeah.
Well, I mean that the music was tied
Yeah.
in at the same time.
I
yeah.
felt like that was all like a nice package.
Yeah.
Well tied up, neat bow on that one.
Yeah.
Maybe almost a little too on the nose, but
You're
we
wrong.
accept it. It was good. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying it was good. But it's one of those things where like, I'm making a comparison here. Look at it. Grabs you by the back of your head. Look at it.
I mean, okay, yeah, that's fair. But I thought it was very, very heartfelt, very emotional.
oh no,
and
it was well done.
Yeah, and the music just really does a good job of underscoring a lot of like the quieter scenes.
Yes,
To where
absolutely.
you really have that. You don't have to have dialogue to have this emotion in these scenes, especially whenever Marva passes away and they're, Brasso's talking with B4. And it's like, hey, you got to go,
yeah.
man. And he's like, no, I want you to stay.
But I am charging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So,
got me.
I mean, yeah, we can talk probably about the score a lot, but we're just going to move on to the plot.
Wait,
'Cause
hold
it
on.
is-
You want to let Ryan get in here? You got
I've already
anything else
got
to
in
say?
here. I
You
was
already
gonna
got
let you get in
Okay.
here.
You can go.
I don't know that I can say much other than just I've never heard of this guy. A plus S-ish job. Like I'm gonna go listen to the soundtrack more. Like there are definitely a couple of tracks that are gonna make pretty regular rotation
Yeah.
in like my movie soundtrack listening.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean just really well done. This is and it's very much so something that like a lot of the show, it doesn't feel Star Wars, right? It's not John Williams kind of
Yeah.
stuff, but at the same time, it's still very much Star Wars. It's just not the side we've been getting a lot of.
Or ever.
A lot of Rogue One has this.
A little
Yeah.
bit. I listened
Not-
to the Rogue One soundtrack today.
It's not there, but it has a little bit of this.
Yeah. Because they still tried to emulate a lot of Star Wars
it's
with Rogue
still
One.
a big screen theater
It is.
production. Like it's still gonna have that.
That and it came out right after The Force Awakens, so they were probably like gun shy on like, yeah,
This
just do a
is-
synthwave soundtrack. Have at it,
This
bud.
is Star Wars. We're here to Star Wars.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were probably like they probably fought for what they could with
Yeah.
the Rogue One soundtrack.
All right, so we're going to move into the meat and potatoes,
The taters.
The taters.
the plot.
Taters.
Okay, so before I say anything, because I've pretty much gone first twice now,
Yeah.
Oh.
you guys get to have it out.
I'll go.
Ow. We're doing a little good, bad, and the ugly stare down there.
Listeners couldn't see the yeah, this show gives us a heist, a
Yes.
prison break,
Yes.
freaking
A revolution-ish.
like the beginnings of
Po-
a rebellion,
Popular
Yeah.
uprising.
political intrigue, like laser battles in space. Like I don't know. This thing had everything I wanted. Like the prison episodes and the heist episodes for
Oh,
me
were
were
phenomenal.
some
the
of the
middle,
top
the
of it.
middle, literally the meat and potatoes of it.
Well, because
Great.
there's so many shows that like when you think about this whole season, like you have like the first three episodes are basically an arc,
Yeah.
and then like the
next
next three are basically an arc, and then the last like 7 to 12 or whatever is kind of like
7 to 12.
Or
No,
what-
there's only 6 left at this point.
Well, no, he's saying
No,
episode,
I'm saying
7
episode
through
7 to
12.
12. Okay.
yeah, it's kind of all amorphous, but like it's rare for a show to have a shift to where like now we're gonna do a prison break
Yeah.
for like 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And then it works.
Mhm.
Like a lot of the times when TV shows do
I
that
feel
like
like we're going
hard
too
pivot,
fast.
then it like what are we doing now? Like what is this? I was ready to continue that first storyline, and
Yeah.
and it never, to me at least, felt like it got so far away from the main thing of what was
And
going
it
on.
didn't feel overburdened.
It didn't feel like a side quest. It didn't feel like a tack on. It was like
Yeah.
this prison, section, these 3 episodes feel like they belong in the overarching story of everything that's happening, and they were great.
Yeah.
And same thing with like the heist. It didn't feel like tacked on. It felt like this is integral to everything.
Steven?
Steven?
So there are minor points and spots that made me frustrated, right? Lightsaber's ship is one of them. It's a little weird. Interesting
mean,
choice.
I feel like you should just talk
the,
to a
the
therapist about
logistics of that specific weapon, I think the use case we saw of it was a little too
I mean,
ridiculous.
they really like the Inquisitor's lightsaber, and they're like, put it on a ship.
I would need to see it again in action to really have a true opinion on it.
There were just a couple of moments throughout that were very Star Warsies where I kind of went when it happened.
I did like when when they had the tractor beam on him, he just let out all the like scrap
that was
metal or
perfect.
whatever.
Yeah,
I was like,
flechette torpedoes.
oh,
Yeah, it's
pardon
an actual weapon.
Pardon
It is
moi.
it's an actual.
As
weapon.
someone who
It
does
was-
not play X-Wing, pardon moi.
It's not an X-wing, but it's those kinds of things show up in some of the like legends and some of the games. I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But that was really cool. All of that scene was great.
Because there's a lot of tension in it too. Because you're like,
yeah.
ooh, is this it?
Well, and
Like,
we don't know
Yeah.
what happens to Luthen. Like
Yeah.
he wasn't running around in Empire. We don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of small things like that, right?
Mhm.
But overall, like Ryan said, hey, they were like, you know what, this week let's do a heist, and it was a good heist.
Mm-hmm.
So I look back to the last heist that I can think of in Star Wars Solo Story,
Mm-hmm.
and that heist, they did not do a good job of making you care about the characters before they have to sacrifice themselves to make the plan work.
Yeah,
Right.
This job-
it felt like they were just checking off the boxes.
Yeah, they're like, well, we need
Yeah.
this type of person, this type of character, this personality. Okay, cool, we're done. This heist, they did a great job of really selling you and investing you in those characters before, things go wrong. right?
Yeah.
And I feel like they did a good job with Prison Break, same deal. They did a great job of really, really quickly establishing who these people were, making you understand the interactions, the chemistry, and like how well he fits in and how he's become part of the group. And then we have a Prison Break, and now those people are all gone.
Yeah.
And it's on to the next group of people we need to introduce and build up or whatnot, right? Now
Yeah.
it's time to care about the people of Ferrix again. I think pacing-wise, it was maybe a little too slow. I feel like, because it's 12 episodes, right? I think you could have had 10 really banger episodes that were like right at 50 minutes throughout.
I think if you were going to cut any kind of content,
See,
it would probably be in the second episode and the seventh episode.
So there are bits and pieces, and that's the awkward thing is the way the episodes break is pretty natural. So it's less of, you could have gone from 12 to 10 episodes, and more like you could have had 3-ish episodes that were like 5 to 10 minutes shorter.
Yeah.
And I think from that perspective, the story could have flowed better. But we're talking almost 12 hours of production, and I'm highlighting 15 to 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. It wasn't like an over-bloated show, because like honestly, like every piece of dialogue, every piece of
I saw a joke today, right? And it's a little like a YouTube sketch where a Disney producer answers the phone. It's Robert Rodriguez on the phone. He's like, "Hey, Robbie, talk to me." And the guy's like, "Hey, I figured out how to stretch 90 minutes of content into 7 episodes." And it's like, "Oh, it's perfect." Talking about Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, you know what? I think maybe I can't stretch this 7. Let's just do the Mandalorian like episode 4." And this, like, Andor did not have that problem. There was never a moment where it was like, put another show in here.
Well, and like Obi-Wan, sorry, you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, every piece of dialogue that showed up in the show had a purpose. Like, even in the first episode, whenever like Cassian's just walking through the street and he's just like, "Hey, this dude, you owe me money," and I'm like, "Okay, why did we have this conversation?" Well, turns out 12 episodes later, it makes a difference because Bix couldn't give him his money because she got detained by the ISB, and now he's miffed because he didn't get his money, so he's gonna, snitch.
Yeah.
And snitches get stitches.
They sure do. They sure do.
Well, what I was gonna say is like talking about like episode length in the season, like compared to Obi-Wan, that felt like this should have been a movie. It felt like they took Obi-Wan, should have been a movie, and they stretched it.
Way out. I mean, Book of Boba Fett could have also.
Right. Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan felt like they stretched a thin concept too far.
This was like, I want more.
This felt like, when it ended, like the first thing we both did was like, wait, they said there's a season 2, right?
Yeah. Like it was borderline. You could have lifted 1 or 2 storylines out and just had like, well, we have the Andor show, but what about the Mothma show, right?
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I don't think that Mon Mothma could hold up a whole show on her own kind of thing. But I know what you're saying.
So there's going to be a lot of people out there who are going to complain like, "Oh, the show is titled Andor, and we spent half the time not even looking at Andor." But like, you have to have other storylines, ancillary characters, side plots. These things have to exist, or it's just not going to work, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying they should have. I'm just saying you potentially could have found enough meat in here to create 2 separate TV shows.
Yeah.
But it's not like it's really hurt for it.
Yeah.
There are just going to be a few moments in episodes where you're just kind of like, okay, yeah, you've made your point. There was one death. I don't remember who it was. And they hit the ground. They just like stared at the camera. I was like, yeah, I get it. He's dead. He's definitely dead. He's not moving. Camera, move anywhere, please.
You gotta feel.
You gotta
the
feel.
emotion,
It was one of these
Steve.
characters whose name I didn't even know. So I was just like, you missed with this one, guys. Everybody else I know.
But there was no Gen Z biker gang. So.
Yeah.
No Vespa no Skittles on Vespas.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about probably my favorite quotation marks side character and my favorite moment of the whole show.
Oh yeah.
And we're gonna talk about Luthen and his ability, to really like find the people that he needs to find in universe to make his rebellion happen. Because essentially, at the end of the day, he is the one that is orchestrating basically all of this, as far as we can tell for right now.
And what do you sacrifice?
Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, they set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there was no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything! Just stay with me, Lonnie. I need all the heroes I can get.
So this speech is probably the pinnacle moment of the series for me personally.
Yeah.
Because this is kind of like, this is the mentality that someone has to have to do this. They have to accept that any kind of change that is actually going to happen because of their actions, they're never going to see it. They're never going to have, it's a thankless piece, because like he says in the speech, like, by the time that anything happens, he's going to be dead. He's going to be gone, captured, whatever.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, because for him, the end outcome justifies any means that he has to go through, using the tools of his enemy, using, like, it's such a great pinnacle of what this character is and what the actual rebellion core belief needs to be.
Yeah, it needs to
it
be in order to
succeed.
succeed. Yeah. Well, and it's another example of where the music and the acting go hand in hand to deliver a plot point in a very like dramatic and like perfect way too. Like just Stellan Skarsgård in the way like he looks down, looks back at the guy, the way he's like shifting and he's like slowly moving closer to him, and it's like it ramps up and like I don't know, but he never really gets like full on angry.
No.
So much as it's just like he's like just gravely serious of like, you don't understand, I'm sacrificing everything,
Yeah. Steven, what are your...
I mean, it's good speech, right? And especially for what it is, because at the end of the day, he is kind of a manipulator, right?
Yeah.
He's making, throughout the show, he's making these decisions of, well, who do I
put my trust in?
Well, not just who do I put my trust in, but I mean, he put his trust in Cassian, and then they decide, well, what if he gets captured? He's not under our control. We have to eliminate him.
Yeah.
He's willing to make these really ruthless calls of, well, the ISB is onto this attack, and I'm only going to let this one cell commit to it and preserve Saw's cell instead of committing more resources, because if I pull back and we don't make the attack, that could tip the ISB off to the fact that we have a inside source of info.
Yeah, and you're way more important because you're the only option
the potential
that we have.
later tip-offs involved can be huge.
We're going to burn Krieger.
And I
That's
love
a great interaction with Saw, too.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Like that.
Him and Forrest Whitaker going at it is phenomenal.
Well, because again, with Forrest Whitaker, you get to see him start off like on board to do this attack. Then he starts to become really suspicious of everybody.
Yeah.
Because of, and you see like later in Rogue One how like that earworm turned into like a really bad
paranoia kept going.
Paranoia. But then, when you see Saw turn the corner between like, this is, you can't like just burn Krieger. What are you doing to like understanding, oh, like this has to happen like this.
Well, and
this is terrible.
The other thing for him too is for Saw, he finally realizes, I know what he looks like. So I am way more
I'm much
valuable.
higher up in the trust. Yeah, like I can't be casually discarded because I could come back and burn further up the chain.
Yeah.
I mean, from my perspective, right, looking at this from like a historical perspective, because like World War II, right, pretty early in the war, the Allies broke Enigma and they broke the Japanese codes.
Yeah.
But again, the trick is, well, how hard do you use that? If suddenly everything we do magically avoids all the Japanese submarines out there, then they know something's up. They change the code and we're right back to square one.
Yeah. So you have
you have to make a decision of, well, how do I not react to something? How do we let this attack happen? How do we react slowly? Like these are real decisions that have been made in the past and are being made, to this day in
Yeah.
war. And it's the kind of sacrifice and because it's a horrible choice, right? It's the kind of choice that most people throughout their lives have no desire to be in a position to have to make.
Well, it's that idea of like there's always a right and wrong, and you
Yeah.
think like
Yeah,
you
you gotta
just
be
do the
thought-
right thing
well,
every
well, now-
time.
Now,
And-
we're just
and-
all in the gray, right?
And,
Yeah.
and from his perspective, the only thing that's right is removing the empire. And
Yeah.
anything that has to happen to make that happen is the only thing that matters.
yeah,
And, from that perspective, or from an outside perspective looking in, he's a bad guy. He's a terrorist. He is,
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
yeah. And it's absolutely one of those kind of characters that, one, Stellan Skarsgård just absolutely nails,
yeah,
but is such an integral part to fast forward to it only him being that character allows Luke Skywalker to blow up the Death Star or allows
Right.
them to, take over the Empire. It's those kind of decisions that, I have to give up 30 men for a chance at blowing up a Death Star, 5 years later.
Yeah.
That kind
Yeah,
of thing.
a chance of this ISB agent slips us knowledge of they're building something big,
Yeah.
Well,
right?
I think-
'Cause who knows where the info comes, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing of where's
Yeah.
the initial tip of we need to start chasing this down, right?
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and the for the plot specifically though, like I did not expect to get this deep of a look into this character, like
Mhm.
Luthen. I didn't even know, I thought going in it was just gonna be about Andor
Yeah.
completely.
Mhm.
And so when they introduce him, and they start talking to him about him like he's Axis,
Yeah.
on the Empire side, and then you start to see the moves he's making and how integral he is to the rebellion. I was like, I love this character.
Yeah.
And then when you see those scenes like that where he's talking about on the bridge, like what he sacrificed, and when he's talking to Saul about like, we gotta burn Krieger and these 30
Yeah.
dudes, like this sucks, but like I don't know what to do, man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, that I did not expect to get that kind of depth out of a different,
But just honestly out of Star Wars,
Yeah,
right?
I
Because
mean-
at its heart, it's a rebellion, it's a war, it's a political uprising. But for the most part, what we get's pretty light and fluffy. We
Yeah.
pull the trigger and the big bad gray ball explodes, and we don't
Yeah.
have to think about the
The millions of
millions
people.
we just killed.
Yeah.
right.
The other thing too is they put a lot of emphasis on the fact that they're losing 30 people. And
Mm.
you think about it from the perspective of like the Return of the Jedi Rebellion, right?
Mhm.
Where there's like a lot, the thousands
And
upon
fleets,
thousands
yeah.
of fleets. And you're just like, 30 people seems like nothing. And
Yeah.
to these people, that is everything.
Well, I mean,
Because we're
it's
still
all they
early in
have.
the
It's so,
rebellion,
it's
yeah.
so
Yeah.
small.
The rebellion's like 60 people
Yeah.
total at this point. So that's like,
Yeah, like you're losing half of your fighting force.
Well, and they talk about how throughout the galaxy, as the Empire pushes harder, they're creating these uprisings, these localized uprisings. So
Yeah.
there are groups all across the there are armies, battalions, regiments, I think is what he says, who are causing rebellion, but none of it's connected, none of it's coordinated. So this is not just 30 people, but it's 30 people you can
Coordinated.
work with. You are planning a joint op with these people. So they have skills, training, knowledge, and they're connected to the
Weapons.
main line. Like Mon Mothma's over here laundering funds,
Yeah.
slush funds, blaming her baby daddy for gambling so that they can fund these kinds of operations. And you're just saying we have to let this piece go.
Yeah. So kind of on that, one of my favorite lines from Nemec's manifesto is the fact that they, these people across the galaxy are already basically signed up for rebellion. They just don't know it yet.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what the final
Yeah.
episode just did so well because, these people didn't go there to fight the Empire.
They went
in
there
the
for a
street.
funeral.
They went there for a funeral, and then they're
Mhm.
like, oh, yeah. We
Let's
need to
pop
get
it off.
Let's
so-
go.
So we're kind of moving on into the entertainment
Yeah.
perspective
yeah,
now.
yeah.
So let's go ahead and
they
just
kinda-
kick that
they
off.
blend together, right?
Yeah. Entertainment levels of
Oh.
enjoyment here.
So I've watched this, just watch an episode here and there,
Yeah.
kind of get into the flow, the feel, not wild per se about like kind of the start in that it's very slow and we're getting kind of the flashbacks, the Andor backstory, which I guess logically the name of the show was Andor. I should have expected flashbacks to his backstory. But for some reason, that took me way off guard. And
What?
Yeah,
Falls off his
what?
couch.
well, I mean, I thought they learned after Book of Boba Fett. At least they didn't put him in a tank.
A Bacta tank.
Yeah, to think
Yeah.
about
in
it.
Dreamland, dreams of Tuscans.
Dreams of Tuscan Rain.
But we finally hit that point with the heist, right? Where things really start kicking off. We meet a lot of these characters who I think had great interactions. Like the chemistry within that team was really good.
Yeah.
The suspicion of Cassian as an outsider.
Skeen was a really good heel.
Yeah, Skeen was a really good, like he was making up these stories, but he just really wants the money.
Yeah.
And like all these people have, different backgrounds and it's very obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And everything kind of goes south there. And I think the moment when I really started to be like, yeah, was like as the pilots are scrambling to the TIE fighters.
Oh, yeah.
And you have all the eye, like
Mhm.
the
A meteor shower.
meteor shower or whatever
Yeah.
is like rocketing overhead. And they do this flight through it
Oh, yeah.
where Nimic is dying and he's still calling out the flight path for Cassian to
that was a
move through.
brutal scene.
Oh my god!
Because you know that he's dead the second that he gets hit.
Oh, yeah.
But even then,
you was dead at the start of the operation.
that they give him essentially adrenaline or an EpiPen to
Yeah.
be like, hey, wake up. We
Push
don't need to
push
do
through.
this.
We don't have a Garmin, so we're going to need you to get in here, bud.
But like from there on out, I think it really, really had me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like episode 5.
Yeah, I
That's-
mean-
that's pretty deep end.
Yeah.
Because there are definitely moments, and obviously, so stuff like Cassian getting singled out in Miami
Yeah.
and arrested. So stuff like that, like because again, I saw some reviews out there where people were like, "Well, this is so stupid," but it did a really good job of showing like how callous the Empire can be.
Yeah. How they just don't care.
But at the same time, I was also almost like screaming at the screen when he was just like, "Oh, there's something going on around." When he kind of kept walking, I was like, "Bro, turn around
Yeah.
and be like, they went that way. Like there is no way you don't stand out in this. Stand out in the manner you need
He
to.
didn't help himself.
No,
No,
and like,
he didn't.
So like it's not really. It doesn't really apply to like a score. It's like, oh, that's points off for being an idiot.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where
Yeah.
they had me so well that I was mad at the character, right? Like,
Yeah.
Well, I
Like-
think, too, though, that almost like speaks to the idea of like, there's nowhere safe. Like
No.
in his mind,
Well-
I'm going to go to Space Miami and I'm going to be like, just lay low on
just
the beach.
live like
And-
a king
but
on
it's
my
like-
200,000, right?
You can't because the Empire's everywhere.
still there.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and the Empire has no problem putting its boot on anyone.
And just tossing you into prison for 6 years that could actually be 100 years.
In
you don't
a
know.
kangaroo court, you know,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
experience. And, that's just kind of what the actual Empire is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the prison scenes for me were really great. Like the dehumanization that goes on in there with like the on
Mhm.
program and just kind of like the way he gets kind of passed down the ladder, right? The chain of command
Yeah.
of, well, you're here with us and you're nothing. You ride the elevator down and now you're with them and you're nothing and you will be nothing. And,
Yeah.
like you sit on this bunk and yeah, you get all the food and the water you can have, but don't step on the floor.
Yeah.
Like this 3x3 space is your life for the next 12 hours until you're back to work.
Well, and I think that's we're on entertainment, but we're
Yeah.
going to dip it back into plot.
Well,
a little bit,
but
like,
plot
yeah.
is the entertainment.
It is. But like, I think for a prison, that was a very creative.
That was a
like,
great
love-
great job.
The
Yeah.
on program,
Mhm.
the floors that are dangerous. Like the floor is literally lava in this place.
Yeah.
Like, and like the setup of like how they have each group of the prisoners compete against each other.
Mhm.
for,
Yeah.
making stuff, and like they have just the way the entire thing was set up to, like you say, dehumanize them, and how they're like doing sign language to the other,
Yeah.
bridges.
bridges and stuff, and like just the way everything was designed and laid out was so much fun for me. Like that for a prison.
Yeah. So much fun for how horrible it was.
Well, it was because like it could have very well just been like a normal cell,
Yeah.
and they're breaking rocks in a yard. Like
yeah,
they
it could have been anything.
They could have very generically just had
But-
a prison, but they went above and beyond with almost every aspect of the prison to make it unique and still feels like it fit in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This show, when it before it kind of came out, everyone was like, "Oh, I really hope that they have Cassian kill people." Like, right?
Yeah.
Like, because like you wanted to be kind of like Rogue One, where like he shot a dude in the back that was an informant, and that kind of ruthlessness that Cassian brought in Rogue One, which at the time felt out of character for me because I'm like, "Whoo, wow, that's pretty ridiculous."
Mhm.
Now it makes a whole lot of sense, and I was really worried about them going into this show where it was going to be not light and fluffy, but really soft around the edges.
Well, also like going back again to the Miami space Miami scene, like he's very naive, right? He just doesn't grasp it. But then by the time that he is going into the hotel to rescue Bix, right? He like takes down the Imperial trooper, throws him on the ground, and it's not like, oh cool, you're out. He like puts the gun on him and pulls the trigger.
And
right.
Those kind of moments are what sold the show for me. Especially even like the opening scene of him basically getting shaken down by these two thugs.
Yeah.
And he technically did nothing wrong initially. I guess.
Well, it's still an accident, I think, though. When
he once he shot the first guy, he committed to the idea that he was
100%.
killing two people.
Yeah. But those kind of moments are really what sold the show, because you're like, here we go. This is not the Star Wars that we're used to, and I want this.
Right, because they didn't pull punches like they did in like Boba Fett and stuff like that, where they felt like they were trying too hard to make Boba Fett a really nice guy.
Yeah, it's like, we don't need this.
Yeah,
no,
he needed to be a crime boss.
He needed to be a ruthless crime boss, not get yelled at by some teenagers in a bad leather jacket with a wig on and just be like, I'm sorry, you want a jib? What? Whereas like, Andor to me, that's what he said to
I know.
This little teenage girl like dresses him down in front of everybody. He's like, I'm sorry, did you want a jib? Can you be in my crew? Like, what?
So I know Steven mentioned it earlier, of kind of like the eye. And whenever the TIE fighters are scrambling, the shot of the TIE fighter pilot getting into the TIE fighter over the gantry.
It's a super impractical way to get on this ship, but the way they're designed, there's no practical way to get on them, so whatever.
Well, but really just like the visual aspect of the eye going
gorgeous.
over
The way it was
with
framed,
the silhouette. Oh man, it was just beautiful.
And they had several. We touched on that earlier, right? Spectacle, but they had several of those, and they reveled in them a little bit, and I liked it. I'm here for it.
I mean, I'm gushing about the show. I really liked it. I enjoyed it front to back. I can definitely see what you're saying, Steven, and how some people could think it's kind of slow.
Absolutely,
for sure.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
it's
I
not
think
for everyone. But for me, it didn't.
It is for me.
The big hurdle for it to overcome, right, is at the end of the day, there's no lightsabers. There's no one says, "May the Force be with you," right?
Right.
There's no Force.
Darth
here.
Vader makes no appearance.
There's no Vader. Like the Emperor is referred to, as like, the menace, the big problem off to the side of the screen. And it's not even that the rebellion is trying to overcome him. It's that the bureaucrats within the Empire are concerned about the Emperor, because he could just walk down and be like, you know what? You're fired. And by fired, I mean out of this canon. It's like it's their own level of problem. Because I mean, we see it, right? Like Cyril is basically as committed to being a Imperial sycophant as he can, right? And he's still just completely thrown in the gutter.
Yeah.
Just casually.
But
go ahead.
I was gonna say, even him though, like it feels like less of a like he's bought into the Empire completely, and more like he just is that kid who loves order, and control.
Right, but he is the prototypical person who would fit in.
Who would
the first couple episodes, I was like, oh, look at this kid, little poster boy for the Empire, and then I was like, bro, you're moving back with mom. What's going on?
Well, and that's kind of the thing is like I like his character so much because his interaction with his mother and his mother's interaction with him
part was great.
Makes such a difference of understanding where he's coming from. It's not that he loves the Empire. He just wants to have control.
Yeah.
And he's never had control, clearly, throughout his entire life.
I mean, he's going back as like a 30-year-old. He still does not have control.
And that he's just trying to grasp as much as he possibly can. And Cassian's basically his way out of that, is the way he looks at it, at least. And his friend, the Scottish, the space Scottish, at the end,
I love that guy.
I kind of wonder, because like the last bit of the episode of episode 12, he's watching with Cyril, kind of what's happening, and he looks actually more horrified at what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, you almost wonder if they're going to take his character, like he joins the rebellion.
Or
something.
He's not sympathizing with the Empire anymore. Because like at the end, you just see him just sitting on the side, just like, I'm just drinking, man. Like, this is not what I signed up for.
This is wild.
Yeah.
I want to go, take me back to the smelter, boys. Like,
and those kind of things is not something that I think we would ever get from a Star Wars show, because he's like a not even a third side character. He's like a fourth
far
tier
down the line,
supporting character, and you just get these little bits, and you're just like, man, like I want more of this. Okay, so we're kind of going through entertainment here, and we've there is a second season happening.
Mhm.
And when you have a show that I'm going to say is this fantastically good,
Yeah.
I'm really scared for season 2.
I'm terrified, but excited.
Yeah, I want more.
Yeah. I mean, to me though, if the same showrunners and directors that worked on this work on the second one, same writers,
Yeah.
I think we're solid.
Yeah. And I think
'Cause they knocked it out of the park.
where this season ends, you have a very obvious, solid set of storylines to pick up, right? We have
Yeah.
Cyril and Daedra
Yeah.
together,
Mhm.
and he's kind of finally shown that he can be useful to her.
Useful. Yeah.
And then we also have Bix and
Brasso.
and the lady from the Daughters of
Da-
Ferrix
And then the kid
and the kid,
Mhm.
and they're going off. We have Luthen going off
with Cassian.
with Cassian.
Yep.
So like we have 3 solid threads, totally ignoring Mon Mothma,
Yeah.
right? So like we have solid storylines. We have Val and
Cinta.
Senta,
Yeah.
who have potential storylines there as well. Like there is, I mean, Space Scotlandia man might come in here and join up
Yeah.
with Saw for all we know,
Yeah.
right? Like, there are so many plot lines that exist that have logical steps that we can take to kind of develop out for the next season.
Yeah.
That again, they bring back the same people, get the same writers in there, same kind of concept. I think that this is a show. I know we were all kind of worried, right? Initially, it wasn't really getting the views, is what people were saying. People weren't enthused for it. I think, Andrew, you had mentioned, not on the show, but prior to,
Yeah.
like it finally kind of like eclipsed House of the Dragon in terms of total viewership.
You did.
And so,
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Cool.
yeah, it's taken, I think once the
It's a
final
slow
hit,
burn.
well, I
Yeah.
think the thing is, because it's such a slow burn, it's not obvious, and there's not,
Some people may just want to wait to binge
Right.
it all at the same time.
Got
well,
it,
well,
yeah.
also, there's not big, obvious entertainment moments necessarily to really talk about until, like, when you hit the final and people are like, I want my ashes to be a brick that I can beat a fascist with,
yeah.
right? Like, that is kind of how you get more eyes on it.
Yeah.
And so I do think that with the success they had or have had, that
Yeah.
Disney is basically going to say, hey, you do what you do.
Yeah. And
So-
I sure hope so.
I really, my biggest fear is that Disney tries to
Manage it.
Disney-fy a lot
Or
of
they're
it,
like, whoa,
and,
Cassian's getting real dark here, guys.
Yeah, they try
Yeah.
to reel him back, or they try to be like, okay, we've got to work in 3 cameos. We need Darth Vader in here somewhere. We need, like they're just gonna start shoehorning other characters in
so-
to like make it part of it. And it's like, we don't need that. We have a good cast.
Yeah.
I just want to see what these characters do
Yeah.
next season and maybe introduce some more. But I don't want like Wedge, for example, Antilles doesn't have to make an appearance for me to
So-
be happy.
Yeah.
I'm fine not encroaching on the original trilogy at all.
So they have confirmed that at least a portion of some of the show is going to take place at the Masasi Temple at Yavin 4.
okay.
So
Well, I mean, that makes sense. At
It
some
does.
point, that becomes the rebellion
yeah,
headquarters.
it has to. So, but with that comes a lot of the larger, grander scale things, which that does worry me because it's going to take away from a lot of the intimacy that this show had.
It does.
Hopefully
But, I
not,
mean,
but yeah.
Obviously, in Rogue
it may
One,
not.
right, we have to get
Yeah.
them there.
Yeah.
And that is, in a sense, it feels like Cassian's kind of base of operations with the rebellion,
Yeah.
because that's where he goes back to. That's where
Yeah.
he's
But, well,
operating
that's
out
where
of.
it should be. And that's
But-
their secret base.
But I mean, like, we still, we kind of got a little bit of a teaser with it where we saw the guard droids, but we still need to pick up K2SO.
Yep.
So, like, that's
Yeah.
a whole.
We need Alan Tudyk. Give it
yeah,
to us.
like, that's a whole plot line. And, like, you want to talk about a character that everybody loves.
Oh, yes.
Like, easy peasy, knock it out of the park, like, bring the eyes in.
Give us
of-
Alan Tudyk.
This is, him deprogramming K2SO
Yeah.
and then partnering up. Like, that's a great story arc right there.
I had a
Mhm.
moment when they got to the prison
I
and they
was
were
wondering.
building. I was like, are they building K2SO bots? Is that what they're building? And I was looking, I was like,
Nope,
I
just
don't
Death
think
Star,
that's a hip. What is
This is
that?
just a
Death Star
weird
mirrors.
hinge engine looking thing.
Yeah, but when they were first put together, I was like, they're going to build a K2SO and he's going to break them out. Like, that's what's going to happen.
Now that would have been interesting where it's like we're assembling our own guard droids and he's like, what if we
Yeah.
just slip some programming in here? or something?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic show. If by this point, if you're already here and you haven't watched it for some reason, go ahead
Hey,
and watch
huge,
it. Please.
huge props to you. You made it this far and you didn't be like, oh, they think it's really good. I should probably finish it before I keep listening.
But yeah, seriously. So, if you like what you heard, we have, or actually, if you really like what you heard,
Yeah.
we have a Patreon that you can give us money to.
That is how it works, yes.
That is how
and
Patreons work.
You give us legal U.S. Tinder, and we use it to
helps
pay
keep the lights
hosting
on.
fees.
Yeah, it helps hosting fees, those kind of things. But what you get out of it is for $1 a month, you get at least one bonus episode a month of completely different content than what you were used to hearing on
we're
here.
all kinds, all over the place. We want to talk about fast food. We want to argue about James Bond openings.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a bunch of
video game things.
Yeah, we had a bunch of Halloween suggestions. Christmas is coming up. I imagine we're probably going to have some Christmas stuff.
Probably.
We also have some fun stuff planned for the new year.
Oh, yeah.
That may or may not involve some voting that you may partake in if you are a Patreon subscriber.
Yeah, you might get to have say over what we're going to talk about.
Yeah,
you know,
sometimes every once in a while, you never know.
Well, and to clarify too, for that $1 a month, you get access to all of our old bonus episodes too. So it's not just the 1 month that you're subscribed.
You get everything.
You get all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you pay that $1, you already have access to a ton of content, hours of quality content
that you can just listen to.
Yeah. Plus, for just a measly $1 a month, then you get access to anything we post on there, a bonus, at least one bonus episode a month moving forward.
Yep.
Yeah. But if you can't afford the $1, we totally understand. We'd still love a like, a share, a comment. Leave us a review.
Join us on Discord.
Join us on Discord. Check out spoilersintendedpodcast.com. It's got links to Discord, old episodes, our newest episode. It's got the Patreon link in there. You know, just give a swing by, say hi. We'd love to see you.
Come on by. We'll be on the porch.
We'll be on the porch.
Yep. And that sounds like all the time we have. So until next time, I'm Andrew.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Steven.
And every spoiler was intended. Now that we know that casual sex is a thing in Star Wars,
I'm going to tell you a story.
Back on the table, boy.
Guys, I'd like to read you my fan fiction about Kit Fisto.
Our opening topic.
I went and perused Tumblr and found some fascinating Kit Fisto
Let me tell you
fanfic.
guys.
Our opening topic is going to be about casual sex in the Star Wars
Why
universe.
is this not being recorded right now?
Technically, I'm recording.
Oh, good. Yay. Save that.